Whoops, I did this last week too. I forgot to turn my lights on. So sorry,
Mm.
everyone, and thank you. Thank you for joining us today. I'm glad you're here whenever it is you're listening. And my guest today is Sarah, and she's my first mystery guest. It's kind of fun to do that. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about how we got started, how I met Sarah, how got started on this conversation. And so Sarah has been on my email list for a while, and we've connected that way a couple times in the past, I think. But a few weeks ago, I had, um, gosh, I don't remember her name right away. It was about astrology and about your birth record and how you can look at your birth record and according to all the stars and see the path of your life or see the different things you're going to struggle with or things that might happen in your life. And so I had sent out an email after the podcast. I always send the link out to people just in case they want to listen. And I had asked if anyone else had had experiences like with past lives or with feeling that your life was planned out or things like that. And Sarah had responded. And so she had had numerous experiences. And I was just, she had called them anchor points in her life, these experiences that of feeling that something was planned out, or like in the title of the podcast, I called it deja vu because that's kind of a deja vu experience of hey, wait, this feels familiar type of thing. And so, Sarah, I'm really glad you're here. If you would like to tell just a little bit about um, your life, or um, and then take it wherever you want to, as far as um, talking about your anchor points or some of these experiences, or how you first noticed having the experiences and things, and we'll just have a great conversation.
Okay, thank you, Carla. Thank you for having me on today and for the work that you do. It has helped influence my life greatly. So I am happy to be here and have this conversation with you. There's a couple different ways I could get to how I came up with anchor points, but I think maybe I'll start with how it kind of unraveled through time for me. The first time I noticed an anchor point, I was newly married within a week or two, and I was standing in the kitchen with my husband, and I was looking at him and I was making dinner, and he came in to see, "How are you going? How's it going? How are you making dinner?" And all of a sudden, I got this overwhelming feeling that is hard for me to describe because I'm sure, as you and your audience know, when you experience something that no one has talked about, it's kind of hard to put words to it, right? So I will describe it as kind of having this tunnel vision that doesn't fully get into a tunnel, but things on the edges kind of get blurry and your focus gets a little bit sharper and your senses all get a little bit sharper. I remember the smells in the kitchen. It's kind of like time completely froze in my head and in my reality. And I had no idea where that feeling came from. Along with those senses that were heightened, I also felt kind of like I was floating, but not exactly off the ground. Maybe operating at a higher frequency, something like that. And it was this feeling of bliss and joy and love. And I was like, I got this thought that was channeled to me, and it said, "This is it. This is the point. This is what you were waiting for. This is what you were looking for. This is your life. And how wonderful it is to be here in this moment." And so all that happened within reality within a couple seconds, and my husband had no clue that I had just felt all this, and he's just looking at me asking about dinner. So um, I didn't know what was happening at the time either, and it took me a while to kind of unprocess it, and I just miss that feeling so much. So I started looking for more of these points in my life. I felt like I had pre-mapped this out. I was coming and living, and this was the path. And this is a serious checkpoint for your happiness and being on this point. You made it. You're here. Keep going.
Mm. That's really interesting. And what, I guess what an awesome feeling that would be to have that confirmation that that you were good, that you were right where you were supposed to be, that yeah, that you made it.
Hmm.
That that would be really, really great to have. Yeah.
Yes, and at the time, I was younger and a little bit more naive, as we all are, and I thought to myself, "Oh, so I married the right man." That's what I'm thinking.
Mm,
But
mhm,
in as we grew together in our marriage and as I grew as a woman, uh, I learned it was much bigger than that. It was I had been looking for a life partner that was him for a long time, and there have been other checkpoints, and it was about this life that we chose to create together and that we were here on this path together and all our choices before each other led to each other and beyond now and our family and how we care for this earth and we're connected to everything and it just spiraled into how we are all with source. Looking back, it was much more than just, oh, I married the right man, right?
mhm. Wow. So that's kind of like what you would call like the twin flame. Is that what you would consider it, that you found your twin flame, the soulmate that you're meant to have?
Yes, yes, in this life, in this role.
Mhm.
And um, I think we've been together before and we will be again as your soul travels in family packs, family units, I would call it, switching roles, but your lives are deeply connected still.
Yeah, it seemed that's interesting that you say so, because I've heard that before from other people that we I hadn't necessarily heard it as family packs, but that we often travel. We're connecting with the same people
Mhm,
throughout
mhm,
different lives. Not that everyone's always the same, but certain core people are the same. And but I've heard that with families, as some of my clients have talked about past life experiences that
mhm,
either they've had awareness of, or they've had past life regression sessions, or maybe their natal chart spoke to it or something.
mhm,
And they've all seemed to have interchanging roles in family situations. A lot of it not good, right?
right.
Relationships between parent and children,
Mhm, mhm.
things through the years. And it's like they're here now because they're changing that. They're going to
Exactly.
stop those old patterns. They're going to stop that soul contract
Mhm,
that the two of those or other members, had carried that pact with them all the time. Whereas, like your soul contract of finding your twin flame, that's something we all want to do in every lifetime, right? Connect
mhm,
with that person and have, so that we each can fully express our own spirit's desires and our own life because we have that twin partner,
mhm.
right? Yeah. Um, Beautiful. So, yeah, go on.
I also think that finding that soul, that twin flame reverberates backward in time too, to pull you forward to that outcome. If we think of time as nonlinear and circular, and there are much other people out there who can talk about time and stuff like this more than me, but these are just my own thoughts as I've experienced. Um, I think that a big point like that led me to in perhaps other relationships where the soul felt kind of similar to my husband, but wasn't quite him. And I knew it wasn't right. And I knew I didn't want that. And I was able to eject because I was looking for something that was just right.
Mhm.
And I see, and I was always breaking up with people. I wasn't broken up with often. If just like once, that was heartbreakable. And I see these other women struggling with men that they know are bad for them for a whole host of reasons. And I look back and I think I didn't have that experience. Mine was more um, soul guided and searching. So I think it also pulled me through time in both directions.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, I think, well, I know I was one who settled, um, where I wasn't looking for the perfect one, right? It was
Mhm.
like my old stories, my old inner wounds that I didn't even know existed at the time. It's just, struggling through life type of thing. And I just wanted to be loved, and basically wanted to fit in the social mode also. All my
Mhm.
friends were getting married, and yeah, that's what's supposed to happen.
Right.
And so, yeah, now for my husband now, third time's a charm, thankfully.
Mhm.
And I had that. I was looking for the perfect one. I made a list on paper, pros and cons, right? What I
Wow.
wanted, what I didn't wanted,
Mhm.
and I wasn't going to settle for anyone that didn't have the the majority of those things, and for sure the top two or three,
Mhm.
right, on each list. And so I haven't felt past lives type of connection with him, but I know he's that for me, and
Mm.
so we probably were very much connected before, but
Mhm.
I'll have
Mhm.
to search that, or ask for remembrances of what we had before.
Yeah, it sounds like at a minimum you manifested him, and where those desires came from, that's interesting.
Well, they came from hurt, right? Too much hurt and not wanting to be, not going to go there again. I finally learned my lesson.
Ah, I
Or
see.
grew past it, that it wasn't worth it. Single
Mhm.
life, I was a single mom for 17 years, and it was like I found that life was good that way.
Mm.
And even though at times it was lonely, it was much easier to be the single mom and make the decisions that only I thought was best,
Mhm.
versus being connected with someone that you weren't in alignment with, and arguing or disagreeing or having really bad things going on.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
was just better. Single was better than that.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so so it was, I could wait, yeah.
Good for you. Mhm.
But anyway, I took up the conversation. So so but how did you and your husband meet this time then? And do you know how you met in other times perhaps?
Um, I don't know how we met in other times. I have seen him once, in the past, and I've seen him once in the future, so I like, in a past life, and I don't
Mhm.
know if it's this life, it could be, or the next one. Um, it's more like a knowing of in his eyes, I guess, his window to his soul, about and how it feels to be around him, that is him. But
Mhm.
I I I don't know how, it will be seen, right?
Sure, sure. So how did you meet?
Oh, in this life,
Mm,
we on online dating.
mm,
I I was at my wit's end with online dating, and I decided I'm not even gonna talk to anybody else, but someone had already messaged me, and I was like, "Okay, this is the last time I'm doing this, and I'm deleting this app," right? And it was him. And we started talking online, and then said, "We're gonna meet in person." We didn't wanna be on the dating app anymore before we even met, and then we met in person, and we like to now call that an online introduction,
mhm,
because we didn't date on a computer, like, we dated in real life, it wasn't online
mhm.
dating,
Right.
um, and so that was it. I knew that he was the one for me within 1 week of us, like, the 2nd, 3rd time I saw him, and I knew that was a little bit overwhelming and would be overwhelming for him, and I knew that he felt the same way. So I told myself that I needed to give him time and space to let his brain catch up with his heart, and that worked. It only took him a couple weeks.
You know, that's so similar to my story. My husband and I were on a dating app. It was named like he was on a different one than I was, but they must have been owned by the same company or something. But they were for the church we were both in at the same time, the denomination.
Mhm,
And he had quit he had met someone and or a couple people on it, and then he had quit and decided, those didn't work out and stuff, so he was going to come on again. And I had been looking for several months and had met one guy, and that wasn't it. And so I was it was like one Friday night or one Saturday night, and I was sitting alone at home, and my boys were out with friends, and it was like, "This is it," you know. And I'm going to get off online dating. It just isn't working. I'm just going to wait a year or something and see again if the time is right. And so I narrowed the parameters so that it could be within a few hours drive of where I was. So I kind of made it almost impossible to find the right person, and I'd never seen his picture on there before, and there he was. And I read I thought, oh, he looks like a normal guy, right? A nice looking normal guy. And so I read his biography, and it was, gosh, we had so much in common. It was amazing. And so I
mhm,
had texted him or messaged him and said, "Hey, read my bio. If you're interested, let's talk," or whatever. And so, yeah, we never talked online either. We started by phone right away. And within 3 weeks, 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we had, no, it was probably a month. We met in person, and both of us knew immediately. It was the right, within
mhm,
that first day
mhm.
or that first weekend, it was meant to be. So,
It's
yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, very cool. It's so interesting we had such a similar circumstances like that.
It is, yes.
Very neat. How soon after that first experience did your next experience come?
Mm, couple months, maybe less than 6.
Hmm.
Um, that is a really beautiful story too. I'm glad you asked that because 'cause I've been thinking about sharing this. So, um, my husband and I have a 3-year-old daughter now, and the next experience was when we conceived her. I saw an opening above my head, like a portal to ancestors, and they were around a campfire, and they were blessing us and our union and our daughter that was coming to us. And I tried to stay and listen to the song and the music that I heard, but I couldn't I couldn't stay up there. I don't know. And so, then a couple weeks later we found out I was pregnant and I had a baby girl, and I was like, that was another anchor point in this life. Like, that was another, hey, you're on the right path. This is a point in time. You are experiencing blessings from your ancestors,
Hmm.
and keep going, keep going.
Yeah, very, very cool. It reminded me of, like your vision or things going on at conception. It reminded me of like the Ringing Cedars series. Anastasia was the name of the first book. But she had described that that's how it's supposed to be, that the conception um, during sex was supposed to be so spectacular that sex just for fun or to feel good didn't had no comparison at all. And it was
Mhm.
supposed to be this huge spiritual wow um, vision type big, yeah.
Yeah,
So you had
yeah,
that.
that's what I had, yep.
Very cool, very cool.
Yeah.
So
So lucky. Yep.
awesome, awesome. Um, have you noticed with your little girl then if she has extrasensory things? Can she still see or hear things that others can't?
Yes, and she has this beautiful connection to my mind. It is unbelievable. An example is one day I was driving and I'm close with my uncle Scott and I hadn't talked to him in a while and I was thinking to myself, when you get home, text Uncle Scott. I want to say hi and see how he's doing. And my daughter is in the back seat of the car and she goes, "When are we going to go see Uncle Scott again?"
Wow.
I know. Like she read my mind and things like that happen. Um, maybe once a month. And she yeah, she's just full of life. I try to foster that spirit as much as I can. I'm always looking. There's not really a lot of information out there that I have found about nurturing people with this kind of talent. And it's especially hard around other people who don't know, and they might kind of put out her flame without meaning to,
Mhm,
socially, like she's telling a story, she's completely submersed in it. She tells me about her brothers and her sisters, and
mhm.
I'm playing with my sister. Oh yeah, what's her name? Her name's Allium. Okay, and she said, like, where'd that come from?
Right, right, yeah.
I mean, some people might say she's around people and they have other kids and sisters, and she sees other kids have brothers and sisters, and she might be talking about that. Sure, maybe. Okay. It's all your perception and what you put out there and what you believe and what you want. And so I try to talk to her about that. What are you playing with her? And she
Uh,
tells me she sees her at night when she goes to bed. She says good night. I'm like, okay, that's wonderful. I'm glad.
right. Oh, no, I think you're very on point to acknowledge that that's yeah, that that's there 'cause, I've heard that, most kids can, in fact, they can have those connections, plus they can see our auras for up until what probably they start school or whatever, but it's only because people don't or tell them, "No, you're seeing things," or "No, no one's there," or whatever, that it, like, crushes them or it snuffs their, um, candle type of thing.
Exactly. Yep. So we're in public and she's at the library playing with her sister. I'm playing with my sister, she says. I'm like, okay. And my friend goes, "No, not your sister, your friend. This is your friend." I'm like, like she's pretending, just pretend she's pretending, she's talking. Just let her be, let her
Mhm.
flourish.
Yeah. Well, in some way, it is a sister, right?
True. Very true. Yes.
So,
Yes.
what you're describing, since you knew exactly when you got pregnant and you um, are spiritually inclined anyway, and you would have automatically started that mind to mind or spirit to spirit, heart to heart connection with your daughter from that moment, right? Every
Yeah.
day you were sending her love, you were focusing on her future, right?
Yeah.
Or your relationship together. That's very similar, I think, and maybe not in conscious words, but in your heart, it was speaking to. Um, I talk about it in my book, the ancient practice of holding and holding our spirit's intentions for the starting with the children at birth, right, at conception, so that you have that connection during gestation and and much so afterwards, of course, although it gets a little different when they have their own mind,
Right.
but as you say, with consistency and you continuing to hold it until they're able to start holding their own spirits intentions for them, like when their mind gets old enough, right?
Mhm.
Then so you've been your life is evidence then that you've been doing that. That's awesome.
Yes. Yes. I knew that she was feeling my every emotion and every thought. And so I was very protective of that. And even, of course, life likes to test you and gave me an opportunity to practice staying calm when I was pregnant and not fearful. We had several $1,000s stolen from us. Yeah, and I was in my first trimester and I was like, I had to learn it's just money and not, and let it be, because she was going to feel that and I didn't want her to come into this world with fears about money because I was so scared.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, very good. Ah, beautiful. It's I wouldn't call them regrets or strong regrets anymore, but it's like comments like that remind me of like how far from being I was spiritual or at least religious, but I mean I had a lot of faith throughout all my life, but it was like I had nothing that of knowledge of connecting with my own boys, my own children, right?
Mhm.
Um, and of nurturing that. Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
Thank you.
Because yes, for sure. I mean, I find that in the biofield all the time, right? If the mother is going through junk in her life in gestation, it's
Mhm.
there. It's there. Yeah, it affects the child the rest of their life. I mean, it starts forming those old patterns that um, are meant to keep us safe, right? So, and I love, I had learned from Brad Yates, who I had as a guest last week on tapping, and he calls them misguided love, that those
Mhm.
patterns are misguided love. And that made such a difference in my thinking because otherwise I kicked myself for having the old patterns and then kicked myself again for reacting in the old patterns and so on and so
Mhm.
forth. And it's just it's part of self-hate. You hate that part of you that keeps doing it until you realize, oh, it's love. It is love. They're doing it to protect you. And so I realized that part of me loved me all the time, right? And it still does. And
Mhm.
so that helps me love me more instead of kick me more, right?
Yes, that's beautiful. I like that.
But yeah, those old patterns are very much there in gestation, starting starting those old energetic blocks
Mhm.
and detours in our original flow. So then, after conception, then how not just with your daughter, but other anchor points. Then,
Um, since since I had her, I only had one more anchor point so far, and that was when my daughter was about 1.5, and I felt like I was finally getting my feet under me about learning how to be a woman and a mom and a wife and everything, but I wasn't.
it's a
And
lifetime process.
right, right.
You never get there.
Right. I was asking Source, I said, please help me be a better wife and mom. Like, I always want to learn. I always want to keep growing. And spiritually, like, I want to grow more. Help me grow. And the universe said, okay. And they put me on a journey. And it was a lot of challenges and some lows, but now I'm through it on the other side, even higher. And I remember I was like, I did this to myself. I asked for these things to happen, like, because I was asking the universe to help me be a better person, be a better human, a better soul, a better spirit. Like, I had to face some challenges.
And yeah, for sure. I've learned at times I listen to man and wife. They both do energy work. Oliver Nino and Mandy Morris. Yeah, they're prevalent in this inner healing energy work stuff, and um, they talk about how when you ask for those things, you need to put a limit. Like you want um, no one to get hurt, and you don't want you like maybe a scale of on 10, right? You only want a 4 on a
Yeah,
scale of
that's a
10,
good way to do it.
that or asking that you really wanna learn, so asking it can be a 10, but no one getting physically hurt, no, house catching on fire, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Stipulations to your quest.
I'll do that next time.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, well, that kinda goes back to the soul contract, thinking of, um, it has to be our conscious choice. That's one of the 5, spiritual chakras that are aspects of our, deepest spirit's desires to know our oneness with, Source. Um, that to know that oneness has the 5 aspects to it, and those 5 aspects are the energies of the 5 spiritual chakras we have in our biofield. And one of those is that it has to be our conscious choice. And so um, that's why if you put the stipulations, it has to be that way because it has to be our conscious choice for that. But that goes back to the soul contracts, right? If when we're in heaven or in the oneness, as I call it, before we our parents conceive us, before our spirit joins the physical, then um, we choose, right? Or there's things that we ask to experience or we yearn to experience, or I've heard people say also that, there's things the universe wants us to do to help others or something. And we have that conscious choice at that time to agree or not to agree. And I've experienced that and I do spiritual hypnosis to learn about things like that, to see what it's like. And of course, I only see it through um, my own perception of how my life has been. So how you see it would differ very, based on your life and how you perceive things. But I have experienced that during the hypnosis to be very true, that I did agree and I did consciously choose. And I was told the universe gave me a choice, right? It told, so there was some things that, so in your do you know what part of your soul contracts are that you have wanted, or perhaps that the universe wanted from you? Have you seen those in your anchor points, you think?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm still figuring if I have, I haven't figured it out yet.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think what a lot of the soul contracts, I think we have soul contracts with being human in
Mm,
general. So it's our knowing that we're going to feel that separation from
mhm,
source, that mind heart separation from source, right? I think that's part of it, and that we agree as being human that we're going to experience all these range of emotions and may have trouble handling them. I think there's specific soul contracts that we agree on, like I'm going to deal especially with low self-worth, or I really want to know how to treasure and honor and respect myself. Well, that would deal with the low self-worth or low self-esteem or something along those lines.
mhm,
And so I think there's the broad range, and then I think there's specifics that we agree on.
mhm,
um, and then I think we get to a point where when we're working on them and when we know what we're dealing with and we're on that healing journey, it's like, okay, it's time to cut those soul contracts, because now we got there, right? As far as knowing what we're dealing with and struggling with them, and we'll continue to work on them, of course, because they're old patterns and they'll come back, but we can cut that contract so that we can more easily um, overcome, or more easily um, uh, mm, be able to restore.
Mhm.
that flow, that divine flow of us, and not have as many of those old roadblocks as we used to, so we can enjoy the beautiful life that we were all meant to have.
Mhm. Exactly.
So, uh, interesting. So, what do you think about soul contracts and things?
I agree with what everything that you said, how there are like larger points and smaller points along the way. And I think that there are options. I like to think of it as kind of my life map. And when I get to forks in the road, I can choose to go one direction or another. And most of them end up in the same place in the end, probably. It's how do you want to get there?
Mm. Mhm.
Um, so play your game of life, right? The way that you want.
That's right. So part of life then is mapped out, but other parts are your choice, or do you see that the map say that is the end point that you'll get to, and the process of getting there is our choices?
I think it's like a big massive map, like kind of a decision tree, and you start out at one point and you end at another point, and how you get from there to there, it kind of branches out, and based on the decisions that you make, you could end up on one side or the other, but in the end, you're going to probably end up in the same place, in the same on the same path out, I guess. But I see it changing. I'm thinking about something like I don't know if you or your viewers maybe have seen the movie Adjustment Bureau. There's like a map as people walk through their life. It changes. It as they go based on what decisions they make, but they try to force them to go into a certain ending.
Hmm. Huh. Yeah. Well, and what I've seen with ancestors, if you don't get to that point in your life during when you're living, which all relates not so much physical stuff because we're spiritual beings, it's where you get to spiritually, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't get to where you're meant to be in this life, then your journey continues in the afterlife until you get to that point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm, mm.
Is that's how we help clear it for our kids.
Yes. Yeah, helping that person get to
Mhm.
where they need to be. Yeah, because their patterns are in us, so it clears as we clear it in us, especially with the conscious choice of clearing it in them also, then it does that much more faster. But we also help them. Um, the way it feels to me that with very close ties, especially parents and children, but also with it could be extended ancestors, depend on how much you knew about your ancestors, or if you knew them or had some type of relationship with them. Um, that we there's something. It's like they have a need or a requirement energetically, because I see the ancestors as very low voltage. It has to do with not having, well, it has to do with still having the mindset of man versus the mindset of God, because that's, you might call them like fallen, right? Fallen from the mindset of God to the mindset of man, where you would have control and coercion and lack and fear, right? Versus abundance and freedom and love. And so their mindset is lower, but also not having a body, because the sun charges our bodies, then they're lower voltage because they don't have the body for the sun to charge. And the moon charges the spirit. And so, anyway, they have the need, if there's that heart relationship with us in some way, like parents or often grandparents, but not always if there wasn't really a relationship there or you didn't know them, then that ancestor, it feels to me, is like they have to tap into their energy within us in order to complete their voltage high enough or complete their healing high enough so that they're able to make the transition. It's like
Mhm.
their voltage here has to be raised to enough
Mhm.
through our conscious choice of helping them that. And further generations then say, like, maybe you didn't know your fifth grandparent, or your fifth generation grandparent, and so but you've started opening the door to ancestral healing, and then but they know, say, I do ancestral clearing and they're ready to clear. Well, they can come through me because you didn't know them, and I'm doing it, and I'll acknowledge them without even having to know who they were, because I'm just
Wow.
acknowledging, because I want to do that. I want to help
Yeah.
them. And so they tap into the universal energy or the universal spirit within us.
Mhm.
And so I got off on a tangent. I could talk about ancestors for ages. but,
I
but
love hearing that, yes.
but anyway, so I guess, so in those anchor points, you didn't necessarily feel past life things, right? But just confirmations that you were fulfilling your soul contracts or fulfilling your life path, right?
Yes, yep, and those anchor points. Um, I have, I guess I would call them visions of the future or the past lives, um, right before and after sleep.
Can you explain that, or tell something that's I don't know, that is you'd like to share?
Sure, I saw, it's that state of mind where you're not really awake yet, but you're not fully asleep, so you have a little bit of consciousness, so you can, I can receive the memory and retain it, um, and it's like I'm there. I had one where I was in a log cabin. I was old. It's right after my husband died, and I have 5 people in the house with me that I thought were all my kids, and I'm making pancakes, and they're like, "Mom, no, sit down, we'll take care of you." And I'm like, "I need to take care of you right now." Like, that's what makes me happy. That's what gives me, some solace. So, I think about that now, and when I'm making food, I get to do that for now until then, right? At least. So,
Oh,
that's
that's
beautiful.
beautiful. Yeah, it
Mhm.
is making me tear up here to yeah, to have been so tuned in to your feelings right in the future, like that, or as a past life. Yeah, that's what you needed to do, and that it can help you now, right?
Yeah, 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 I'm not fearful of the future or anything like that, and I get to experience that the whole rest of my life. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that is beautiful. Uh,
Well, I started, playing with my dreams at least 25 years ago. When I was young, I had recurring nightmares, horrific, terrible. I was scared to sleep, and nobody could help me.
uh,
Nobody believed me. Nobody cared, really. So I had um, started I started reading the literature at the time in psychology on dreams, and I was like, no, this isn't it. This isn't going to help me. And so then I started looking at, what people would consider alternative things about dreams, which is really probably more true. Like what do natives think about dreams? I want to read books about dreams. Oh, you can control your dreams. You can ask to do things in dreams. You can take off in dreams. You can it's this whole other world. So I had to learn how to stop my be a lucid dreamer and stop my terrible nightmares and
mhm.
tell them no. I'm not having this, which cured it fast. And then I got to explore other things like asking for these visions and just the other night, I couldn't fall asleep. It was the middle of the night. I was up for an hour and I was laying there and I was like, "Oh, please help me." And I got this message and it was rest assured. And I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna rest assured." And I fell right asleep.
Yes, yeah. But let's go back to, gosh, I'm lost my train of thought. Um, your dreams and so, like, how did were you said it cured it quickly. So um how did you get yourself so that once you were in the dream, be able to make those choices or changes, or did you wake up and make them and then go back into the dream? How did that happen for you?
I trained myself to be aware in my dreams that I was in fact dreaming. I I look at my hands. I I look around and I look for color versus black and white in my surroundings, and I tell myself if it's a dream that I don't want to be in, I'm like, no, this is a dream. I'm not here. I don't like this. I don't allow this. I'm not coming back here, and that works. And then I wake up. Uh, but sometimes if I'm having a good dream, I can elongate it just by bringing my awareness that I am in a dream and I want to be here and I want to feel this. But I usually, I have no sense of time actually, but I feels quick that I feel a sense of pull back,
Mhm.
back here.
So that's amazing to me that you were able to learn about the dreams and change that pattern in you as what, a teenager or
Yeah, yeah,
junior high? What,
yeah.
a
It was
teenager?
high school. It was in high school.
That's awesome. Yeah. Kind of kind of shows in the difference in our ages. Like, when I was in high school, there wouldn't have been anything I could have found to read or learn about it probably. But
Right, right. I was looking at books on lucid dreaming and that because that's what they call it when you have some awareness in your dreams. And that just sparked the idea for me. Oh, I can be in my dreams. I can do this. So I
mhm,
started playing with it.
beautiful. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's hard when you're actually fearful of something like sleeping and your family tells you it's all in your head. Like, yeah, it is. But that's not helping me.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Ah, well, yeah, I remember as a child, I know I was young. Mm, it was lower grade school ages at least, probably, I'm guessing 6 or 7 maybe. But it was like I would have went on for several weeks or months, and it wasn't necessarily every night, but repeatedly, um, many times during that length of weeks or months, I had the exact same dream. And it was like I was running down it was a orange and yellow psychedelic spinning tunnel type of thing. Like you think of a lollipop, that has
Mhm.
all the rings around it. And it was like that. I was running down and there was a woodcutter chasing me with an
Oh,
axe. And it's like scary as, I'd wake up screaming or whatever, but it was, yeah, I could, roll over or wake up enough and get back to sleep, but it would just be the same dream that would happen over and over and over. I
mhm.
don't know what that was all about.
That's scary. How did that get in your psyche, right?
I have no idea. Yeah, I have no idea.
I always wonder that. I think movies, TV, videos, whatever you call them, all these moving pictures these days, horror movies, I am much more protective of my daughter's psyche than anyone ever was of my own until me, but it was too late, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. And that would have been. I remember as a kid having nightmares from watching The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, yes, yes.
um, but I don't.
And they call
They,
it a kids movie. It's traumatizing.
it is. It's yeah. It's yeah.
It's
Many
horrible,
many of the kids movies, right? They aren't.
right?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, your daughter will have. um, wonderful, wonderful chance at being growing into her life as a woman, as an adult, as a woman, um, in a much more full and centered and spiritually centered way because you're able to guide her. And you're doing it now and she doesn't know that, versus a child who doesn't have that spiritual port at all. They might have parents that both love them and there's no huge trauma in their
Mhm,
life, but they still grow up without that spiritual guidance and connection, right? And your daughter will be much much, to an advantage there, in fulfilling her soul contracts
mhm.
and things.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you, thank you. I think she needed me, someone. Yep, she needed me, exactly. She picked me.
yeah, yeah, I didn't know to have that with my boys, but I try to have that with my granddaughter.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
How does
so,
she like it?
uh, good, yeah, I can tell the spiritual connection, like the thing of holding or you connect with her spirit,
Mhm,
and, yeah, it's fun at times, yeah. The, um the messages I get from her. And I don't think her conscious mind,
mhm.
is she's 3, right? She'll
Okay.
3.5, and so her conscious mind isn't there, but it's her spirit responding, and
Right,
it
right.
and it's so fun. Yeah, it's so heartwarming. Yeah,
Yes, and pure, it lights up your whole life.
yeah.
Gives you a reason for being.
Well, it does. It does. And um, I I know I tried when my son and they were expecting her and things. I tried explaining to him and his partner and my granddaughter's mother, and they're still together. But I was trying to explain to them, how you could do that telepathy, right? The mental
Mhm,
telepathy of the holding. That well, they weren't into the spiritual stuff, but it was like they could still do the mental connection, the mental telepathy, and give that bond of love, right, to
right.
support the child. And um, I don't think they were able to really um, figure out, how to do that at the
Hmm,
time. But maybe they have sense. I haven't asked because it's never too old, right? Never.
right. You have to practice everything.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So beautiful. Um, so is there any other thing? I know you kind of made jotted down some ideas that you wanted to share, or memories you wanted to share. Is there anything else you'd like to um, talk about or share before we close?
I think we covered it all. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Is there a message you would like to give to viewers um, from your heart to theirs?
Oh, I guess what's coming to mind is keep at it. Keep at it.
Yeah. Beautiful. Um, okay. So I'm just going to interrupt just a hair here and I'm going to put my little banner at the bottom and for people to please like and subscribe. And um, I just really appreciate our conversation today and the chance to talk about these soul contracts, to talk about how, I guess, our own spiritual journeys, right? And um, how we can experience the other realm in many different ways here in this
Mhm.
life. And beautiful. Thank you, Sarah, so much for coming on with me today. And thank you, everyone, for watching. I really appreciate it. And we'll end there for today, and we'll catch you next week.